Hi, it's Lerald, and a handful of hours ago, GGG dropped a preview of patch 3.25.1, which brings some changes to the league mechanic that should hopefully make shipping more consistently profitable, and more importantly, they have announced some pretty huge changes to Tier 17 map mods. So let's take a look at the patch and go over all the big positive changes, but first don't forget to like and subscribe. Now before I dive into the patch notes, let me just give a bit of general feedback on them. For the most part, I think all these changes to the league mechanic and to Tier 17 map mods are good. Many of these are just good with no negative feedback to give about them at all, like fixing the currency exchange or making thaumaturgic dust work better as a shipping mechanic. I think that's just like a net positive. Great job, guys. That's pretty much my feedback. Now, there are some changes like removing specific build disabling mods from Tier 17s that are good for a handful of players and actually wind up being a net negative for the majority of players. Like, you know, some of these are mods that would have no impact on 80% of the builds that exist in the game. So when they show up, you just can go free, sweet, no modifier. But they would effectively make the remaining 20% of builds 100% unusable in those Tier 17 maps that would have those mods. I actually think this is fine too. The point of Tier 17s is to be challenging, but not challenging in a way that immediately kills your character if you use Herald of Purity, or you leech, or like charge stack, and now you just simply cannot function in a large number of Tier 17 maps. Those mods were evil and they needed to go. Now the biggest criticism I still have left over is that these mods shouldn't have made it to this point. They shouldn't have gotten into a second league. They should have died with Necropolis, and we should have been told about it in the initial patch 3.25 reveal like 3 or 4 weeks ago. That should have happened. To play devil's advocate, which, just to be clear, doesn't mean that this is what I think. I'm just taking the opposite side of the argument. I don't agree. Don't say in the comments that I agree with what I'm about to say. So maybe GGG's justification for leaving these god-awful, evil Tier 17 map mods in for the first 2 weeks of this league was that they were nerfing Tier 17 monster life and damage values by a lot, and they were worried that a massive nerf of the mods at the same time would trivialize the difficulty of these maps. I don't think that would have been the case. I don't think that would have been true. I don't think that's the case at all. I actually think these changes are somewhat conservative, but they do hit the mark for what GGG is going for with Tier 17 maps. They're still going to be challenging, but bad mods are significantly more manageable now. They are things that you can do even if they impact your build negatively, as opposed to simply turning your character off. The mods are dangerous, but that's a lot better than being a set of pass-fail map mods designed to annihilate Chaos Orbs on rerolling, or builds that don't have several mirrors of investment if you try to run the maps with those bad mods active. Alright, so with all of that being said, that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get into these patch notes, and let's just jump right in right now. Alright, so first off, this has not happened yet, later this week, so probably in the next couple of days, we're planning to deploy patch 3.25.1, which includes changes to Recombinator, Thaumaturgic Dust, and Tier 17 map mods. Alright, here goes. First change is a rework to how shipping Thaumaturgic Dust affects shipping risk and rewards. Previously, it was multiplying the shipment value and having a disproportionately high impact on risk compared to rewards. I'm thinking what is happening here is something a lot of people have noticed is that once you put more than like 5,000 Thaumaturgic Dust into a shipment, it effectively is just completely diminished. The returns, you could put 5,000 in, you could put 55,000, 500,000. It all winds up being the same in terms of impact. This is not great. I have, I think, 8 million. Let's take a look. Let's just jump in game and take a look here. I think I have like 8 million dust. I have 9 million dust. At this point in the league, if they didn't make any changes to Thaumaturgic Dust, I wouldn't need to disenchant anything until the league ended. I could just simply ship out 5,000 dust with every single shipment that I said for the rest of the league and probably not run out. That's not great. So making it scale like this, I think, is better. Ideally, this means that we'll be able to put more dust in and have it have more of an impact, and as the next line reads, now it simply adds to shipment value as opposed to being a multiplier, and scales the amount of rewards based on the other goods being shipped. This means the way Thaumaturgic Dust affects shipment value and risk now directly correlates with the amount of rewards you'll receive, and in almost all cases, this is a buff from before. I think this is generally good. As I've said, I have gotten a lot of stuff from shipping. I think shipping has been incredibly profitable for very low effort. And so if they're saying that they're going to buff shipping and make it even more rewarding, I can only see that as an unalloyed good. This is good stuff. When recombinating items, rare modifiers now have a much higher chance to be selected for the resulting item than before. All right, let's go take a look at the disappointer. So the recombinator is irritating for a lot of people because it just basically prints out garbage. You can put a really valuable item in here, a really valuable item in here, press recombine, and it prints crap. I find it annoying because it's in the way of the stash, if I'm being honest. I have played around with it a couple of times, found that all I ever got was garbage, and said, all right, I'm done with you, recombinator. And then, unfortunately, I keep clicking it trying to get to my stash or get to Isla. So I would like it moved slightly. If they could swap the place of this button in the recombinator, that would be my biggest piece of feedback. But a lot of people who have put much more effort than me into playing with their recombinator and trying to make it work have continued to just find that it prints garbage only. So if this makes it so that the recombinator is a more reliable, usable technology piece in the town, I think that will, again, be nothing but positive. I think everyone will generally be happy with that change. All right, here's one that's almost more of a bug fix. Players now spawn further away from the portal in the Admiral Valerius boss encounter to help prevent leaving by accident. I've seen this post on Reddit a couple of times, people saying, don't just click around where you spawn, like force move away from where you spawn in. I joined the boss fight to rescue my sailors. I accidentally left immediately. All of my sailors were instantly killed. I lost my shipment. I have to recruit a whole new team. This sucks. So they have just changed it by, there was some requests for maybe having like a dialogue before you leave. A little intrusive, just make it so you spawn further away from the portal. That also works. And then this is a really big one, added the Uber Boss fragments and also some missing fossils and blighted scouting reports to the currency exchange. Uber Boss fragments not being available as something you could currency exchange has been a real bummer for me, and I think with the changes to tier 17s, then also being able to instantly sell a lot of these Uber Boss fragments is going to be a big net positive. All right, now let's take a look at the tier 17 changes. So we'll start with the adjustments, and just right off the bat, they picked what I have kind of highlighted as one of the most evil map mods that tier 17s have, the Saw Blades mod. They have been slowed down and only fire 3 saw blades down from 6. This is a massive reduction in the threat level generated by those saw blades. Those things are just profoundly evil, profoundly dangerous. So this is a great change. The Mark for Death debuff, which is one that I really thought they would actually remove this from the game with patch 3.25, but they've more or less removed it by making it no longer prevent recovery of life and ES at all. It now just increases your damage taken by 50% instead of 30. I think that this mod, the 50%, will not scale with map mod effect, and instead it will just be the duration scaling with map mod effect. Either way, this is still pretty high. They could have just removed this part, just removed the life and ES recovery part, not change the damage taken at all. A 30% shock, which is essentially what this is, a 30% shock that you can't immune, is quite devastating. So being a 50% shock that you can't immune, and if you have a normal amount of map mod effect, which you will normally in tier 17s, you're probably going to have about 200% map mod effect, which means this is going to last for about 20 seconds after you kill a rare, which pretty much means it's going to be up the entire time you're in the map. So from the time you start the map, pretty much until you make it to the boss, you're going to be taking a 50% shock. That's pretty bad. So I still think this map mod kind of sucks. I think it's pretty brutal, but it's not unplayably brutal. It's just kind of rough. And I think that pretty much nails what they're going for with tier 17s, right? Hard, not unplayable. I can live with that. I can play around with it and see, maybe for some builds, 50% increased damage taken is still fine. If you're block capped and you're mostly immune to damage, then who cares? For some builds, this is still going to be pretty devastating. I think it's okay. All right, players and minions deal no damage for 3 out of every 10 seconds was 4 out of every 10. I still hate this mod. I still think it should go entirely. It's terrible. The same with the next one, 3% reduced action speed for each time you've used a skill recently, down from 4. This is sort of I think both of these are kind of shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic a bit, but fine. Monsters have 100% increased AoE and fire 2 additional projectiles, down from 4. I am surprised that they didn't reduce the increased AoE. Some of the boss fights, in particular Katarina in Ziggurat and the Unholy Trinity in Abomination, just become insanely hard to do if they have 100% increased AoE, especially once that is scaled up by map mod effect. Once that becomes more or less 200% increased AoE. Those abomination circles are just like the size of a building, and that is kind of surprising to me that it hasn't been changed. All right, monsters take reduced extra damage from crits is, instead of just they do not take damage from crits or extra damage, like a horrible, horrible mod, it is now a bit more manageable. I think a lot of these are tuned and designed with the intent that you wouldn't be taking any extra map mod effect at all, and then, you know, kind of letting players accept that if you're pouring map mod effect on and scaling this 35% up to about 70% or 45% reduced extra crit damage up to 90%, you're basically still at the same level as the old mod. I think that it's okay for them to tune some of these map mods to be pretty brutal, or I should say pretty brutal once map mod effect is layered in. Like, a 35% reduced extra damage from crits is really not that bad with no map mod effect. It is your choice if you want to then pour on the map mod effect to get more reward, and then also punish yourself more. I think another good example here is this less area of effect has basically just been reduced down to the tier 16 map mod, which is 25% less area of effect, which is fine. That's manageable even for AoE builds. 50% less area of effect, once combined with map mod effect, was basically just going up to 100% less area of effect. So if you play a Cyclone build or any sort of AoE build, Cyclone, Earth Shatter, most builds are AoE builds. If you have 100% less area of effect, you have no area of effect, you literally are incapable of doing damage. So I wouldn't have been too surprised to see them just remove this and just leave the tier 16 map mod effect or tier 16 map mod in. That's more or less what they've done here, but it still comes with the tier 17 map mod reward of giving you more scarabs or currency or maps or whatever. So this is fine. The less defenses mod I think could have been removed. This one is just so brutal, but you know, they've cut it in half. I guess we can live with that. I think most builds are still probably not going to use this, but there are definitely some that will. Block cap builds, for example, will definitely be able to handle a 25% less defenses map. Rare and unique monsters removing 5% of life, mana, and energy shield down from 10% is pretty substantial. This was a mod that, for the vast majority of builds, just instantly would kill your character anytime you rounded a corner and fought like 10 guys. They all hit you, and now you immediately have lost all of your life. The only real way to deal with this was, again, to be like a block-capped build, and I think this becomes a lot more manageable now. You know, you're going to lose, you know, with normal map mod effect, like 9% of your life, mana, and ES per hit. I think that's a way, way, way more sustainable. All right, and then the following mods just can't roll at all. 100% reduced effect of curses on monsters. This is great. This is a horrible map mod effect that pretty much impacts every single build. Players have -2 max number of summon totems. This is one of those ones that I was talking about that only impacts a handful of builds, but the ones that it does impact, it just completely renders them unplayable. So I think this is a good change, ultimately, to remove this so that those totem using builds can actually function in a lot more tier 17 maps. It does mean that the pool of tier 17 map mods for everybody who doesn't use totems, which is like 80 or 90% of builds, did just get more difficult by not having a free mod in there, but I can live with that. And the same goes with this next one. I use Herald of Purity in the Earthshatter Berserker. I haven't really played with allies in a long time. Most of the builds that I play don't have any sort of minions or anything like that. If you were using Herald of Purity and having 4 large adult sons around from that buff, now you are taking 80% increased damage all the time with no map mod effect. With map mod effect, you're taking like 160% increased damage all the time, basically 160% shock all the time. That's completely insane. So obviously the intent here, I think, was to make minion builds be at more of a disadvantage, but really multiplayer builds be at more of a disadvantage with this, and it just completely missed. So this will not be missed. All right, endurance charge stacking has become really popular in this league for obvious reasons. It's very good. Frenzy charge stacking and power charge stacking have always been popular, and this map mod is horrendous for builds that do charge stacking but don't use Ralakesh's Impatience. They're just like completely unplayable without Ralakesh's Impatience, so this is a map mod that absolutely should die. The same really goes for the next one. No recharge of energy shield, no regen, just terrible map mods, not fun. Kills a vast majority of builds and something that should be gone. And then again, same with block. There are a lot of builds that don't block. Some builds don't have suppress built into them. And so for those handful of builds that fall into that category, again, this becomes a situation where now you don't have that free mod. But for the majority of builds, this is a brutal one, so this is really good to go. Same with non-cursed effect, like from auras. This is such a brutal mod, just turning off auras, basically. There are some builds, like the Earthshatter Berserker that I've been playing, where you use a bunch of war cries, which are war cries and not auras, and then you use Herald of Purity, which is a herald, so not an aura, and you use Blood and Sand Stance, which is a stance, not an aura. So I actually have no auras in this build. So this is one of those handful of builds where this would actually be a free mod, but those are quite rare. The vast majority of builds get completely poleaxed by not having auras, and once again, this is a good one to kill. And then these last two, less recovery rate of life in ES. Basically, you can't recover life in ES, and you can't leech from monsters. Just terrible. Needed to go. And they have added one new tier 17 map modifier that I don't really think needs to exist. 50 to 60% reduced maximum total life mana and energy shield recovery per second from leech. This is, I think this will interact with your existing maximum total life mana and energy shield recovery. So if you're playing a Slayer, for example, I think that you will then still be able to run this even with map mod effect increasing this significantly. That will like counteract your existing increased maximum total life and mana and energy shield from leech, and so you will still be able to run those. I believe that is how that would work, but obviously if you're not playing a Slayer, if you're not playing some build that has a lot of investment into leech, and you have a bunch of map mod effect, this effectively will still function like monsters can't be leeched from, but it's not as prohibitively difficult. All right, here's a change that immediately affected the economy. The price on these skyrocketed the moment that these patch notes were dropped. The Divination Scarab of Plenty now grants additional packs of magic monsters that have 800% increased chance to drop Divination Scarabs. Nope, Divination cards, instead of modifying existing packs in the area. It also now has a limit of 5 up from 1. So I have a handful of these. It's these guys right here, Divination Scarab of Plenty, up to 3 packs of magic monsters, have 800% increased chance to drop div cards. Now it adds packs. So I think the new strategy for div card farming is going to be to rock 5 scarabs of these. Maybe not 5, since it doesn't seem like there is an additional stacking effect like there is with Scarabs of the Cloister. But hypothetically speaking, if you have a div card that you want to farm, maybe you want to farm Fortunate, you could just throw 5 div Scarabs of Plenty into a map and just basically plenty and go, and I think that's probably going to be a pretty fun strategy that people are really going to like. So I'm definitely looking forward to playing around with this one. This is probably the thing that I'm most excited about in the patch, even though there are some huge tier 17 map mod changes. I think this is just like really fun to be able to just finally get back in there and really spam farm some valuable div cards. All right, the Bestiary Craft, a 30% quality of map, had a bit of a bug with it. It's been reworked so that it says that it gives 30% quality, kind of not a big deal. Updated Vengeful Cry to clarify that minions can't gain rage, that's fine. Singular Carapace's Atlas passive has been renamed to Towering Carapaces, and all of the stuff that used to reference Reliquary Scarabs now references Titanic Scarabs. And then this is a big one for me. The new Calm's Command Unique Siege Helmet has been added to the Unique Stash tab, so this is something I noticed pretty much immediately. This helmet right here, it comes from boats, and if I try to put it in the Unique tab, I'm control clicking, it's not going in. I'll click and drop it in here, there is no place for it. This is something where I went, I guess they just kind of forgot about that. I didn't expect them to get that fixed so soon, but I am glad that they have. All right, now we have some useful bug fixes. There was a bug fix with managing town from Johan. I guess I hadn't had this problem. There was an issue with the ransom option not showing how much gold is required. I had noticed this. I had moused over because I was curious and I never saw a number. So I just said, well, I'm not going to ransom anyway. I'm going to always kill the bandit leader, the pirate captain or whatever. But yeah, okay, now I can at least know how much gold it would cost me to not do those fights. I'm still going to do them. Fixed a bug where quality on life mana and hybrid flasks was incorrectly scaling duration. This is a fascinating one, so instead of increasing the amount of healing, mana, etc., it was scaling the duration. I hadn't noticed this, but I guess, yeah, that does kind of make sense. What a weird bug to occur. Fixed a bug where map crafting options from Scarabs were not appearing if placed in the 6th slot of the map device. All right, this was a huge one. I'm going to go to my map device here and just show this off. This is one that I had seen a lot of people say that you know, if the map device was set up like this, then I just simply wouldn't get what was in that spot. So I had been running my maps like this, primarily just for like, I don't know, aesthetic symmetry or whatever. I guess having them all encircle the map makes more sense thematically, but I'd been running them like this, 5 scarabs up top and a map down in the bottom. So I hadn't really noticed this, but I had heard several people say that this is a bug that had suddenly popped up. And yeah, it's a really, really bad bug. Eating the scarab, but not triggering it is terrible. So definitely it's a good thing for that to be fixed. Now there's another bug, another item, Admiral's Arrogance, the new unique gloves that give you a chance to get max rage when you get, well, basically when you generate rage from a hit. It was applying to all hits, which is pretty incredible. I knew that there was something going on with that. There were a lot of people saying that these gloves were bugged, essentially, that they seemed to trigger from every hit. And yeah, I guess they were. It made it so that you could pretty much maintain permanent berserk uptime, which is a real problem to be able to just permanently maintain berserk. So this is definitely a good change as well, good fix. This is gonna hurt some people who are playing a bugged build, but you know, that's too bad. Fixed a bug with Taste of Hate, the unique flask that has chill and freeze avoidance, and Fizz as added cold, and these just straight up weren't applying. This is something I had read about in the first week of the league on Reddit, where people had said there's like thousands of people still using Taste of Hate. It is bugged. It literally doesn't do anything. Do not wear this flask. It is worthless, worthless, worthless. Yeah, that's pretty tough, but I guess for those people who did not know that, who missed the boat on that information, at least they'll have a functioning flask again. All right, there's another bug here that I have noticed and has been kind of in for a little bit. Fixed a bug where the Vengeance notable passive skill granting rage when hit by enemies was incorrectly applying to all hits and not just hits by enemies. Okay, I can show this one off. So, I am wearing Ben's Helm, Echoes of Creation, so whenever I Warcry and then Slam, I will hit myself, and this is Vengeance just to show it off. Every time you're hit by an enemy, you gain 3 rage, so watch this. All right, 4 rage from Warcrying, and then Slam. I've just generated 3 rage, 3 rage, 3 rage, 3 rage. Just fantastic. So that will be removed. It's fine. It's not going to change anything. I'm still going to have pretty much as much rage as I did before. Certainly as much rage as I need. So this isn't a huge deal. It is something that I've noticed and thought was kind of funny. But yeah, that'll be nerfed. That's fine. Savage Intensity, which is another notable, not one that I use, not one that a lot of people use, has a reduced cost of attacks while you have at least 20 rage, and this wasn't applying to rage costs. There's not a lot of skills that cost rage. I mean, there are no skills that cost rage by default, unless maybe Rage Storm, I guess, but it wasn't applying to Rage Storm. It wasn't applying to any things that are like modified by uniques to cost rage, and so that will be fixed, and that is a good thing, ultimately. And then these last couple of bug fixes: fixed a bug with the Sepulchre map boss, sure, why not? Fixed a bug with a Plummeting Kahutura unique finisher microtransaction. I wasn't aware of that. It makes me want to get that and watch it now, but you know, since it doesn't work with a rare monster finisher effect, maybe I'll wait until the patch before I go trying to get that MTX. And then this one right here, fix the Meteoron Flask, use tier 17 map mod and Searing Exarch Alter modifier having no impact effect. Okay, this is interesting because I have taken this mod a lot this league and I haven't died to it. I haven't even seen it proc yet. And so I'm not sure if, I don't think it has no visual effect. I'm pretty sure I've seen the visual, but I do feel as though I've been hit by it and not taken any damage from this map mod. So that would make sense that it was, or I should say alter mod. That would make sense that it is not working. So I guess that's unfortunate, but you know, I'll just have to deal with it. Okay, so in conclusion, I think that this patch fixes the main problem that has existed with tier 17 maps since their addition to the game in patch 3.24. The map mods have been oppressive, completely overshadowing everything else surrounding tier 17s as a concept, and I think this patch will significantly help rein that in. It could go further, to be honest. I think some of the mods like Awakener's Desolation, that's the Cirrus degen, or the Eater of Worlds Drowning Orbs, or the Maven following you around and spam healing enemies and just spamming your voice lines, that could also all be tuned down by 50%, and no one would be upset about that change at all. This patch isn't implemented yet, so maybe we will get more iteration on some of these changes, such as the things I just said, or Marked for Death being tuned down, but in general I am very, very positive on this update. My only real criticism is that I wish it had come sooner. I also think most people would be really happy if GGG tuned down the gold costs for King's March, I have recently become a rarity maxing gold Chad, as I talked about in yesterday's video on gold, so I'm unbothered, moisturized, and flourishing, but I do still think that map runners could have their gold cost cut by 50 or even 75%, and no one would be upset about that. In either case, this patch is really, really good, and I can't wait for it to drop. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.